Hello again, everybody. This is my video where I'm going to talk about the thought process behind the Dragon Knight class. It's a custom class that I created for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons and has been published on the DM's Guild. There will be a link in the doobly-doo if you want to go pick it up. I would greatly appreciate it. But again, this whole video is me explaining the thought process behind a lot of the choices that I made while designing it, and overall the theme of the class, just to kind of help people understand a little bit better about why I made this. So first things first, the class itself was really designed to fill a void that I didn't see in 5th edition. Dragons in general are a huge part, and one of the things that you see a lot in fantasy games in general is dragon knights and dragoons and things like that, where these are warriors that have either mimicked dragons in their abilities or somehow connected to dragons. And I've always been a big fan of dragons in general. Like, I really like them. I think they're super cool. I put them into my campaigns when I can. So I wanted to be able to make a fighter, basically, that had a few abilities that you couldn't really do based on what was already in the game, that you couldn't, like, just flavor text out, and give them, create this character that would feel really powerful like a dragon and have a really strong draconic theme without it being super overpowered. The two things that really the class focuses on specifically are the dragon weapons, which I'll get into the specifics of them a little bit later, and draconic power points. I again wanted to create something that would make it unique, something that would make it play very differently from the other classes that are currently there. That's one of the things that 5th edition does really well, is the fact that every single class, even if they have a very similar purpose, is going to play very differently. A fighter plays very differently from a barbarian. A wizard plays very differently from a sorcerer, who plays very differently from a warlock, even though those classes are very close in content as far as what their purpose on the battlefield is. And that's what I wanted to do with this one. So so the weapons themselves I will go into a little bit later, and then I'll go into the draconic power points a little later. The reason I chose strength and wisdom as kind of the two things is strength or dex, if you do either of the two subclasses that are dex-based, is kind of a thing with dragons. Dragons are strong and everything like that. The reason I chose wisdom as their kind of secondary stat and the thing that you use for all your saving throws is I kind of envision the Dragon Knights having an incredibly strong kind of willpower. And that's what fuels their abilities. They get this blessing of power from these incredibly powerful, strong beings. And the only way to really survive something like that is to have your own really powerful, strong will to do it. So all of their dragon attacks and things like that are much more based on their own willpower than it is on their on like their charisma or their intelligence or something like that. It's based on how strong of character they are. So the equipment, this is really where you kind of decide, even though you're at level 1 and you won't pick your dragon weapon until level 3, this is really where you kind of decide on your dragon weapon, is right from the beginning. If you choose the first option, the one-handed martial melee weapon and a shield, that's kind of designed for you to go down the defender path. If you choose the pike, that's designed for you to go down the Dragoon path, obviously, and then if you choose the two one-handed melee weapons, that's designed to put you down the Warblade path. Um, One of the things that was pointed out to me by one of my playtesters is you really need to add in the defining characteristics of the class in the first or second level. That's how all the classes work. So I didn't want to add the dragon weapons in until level 3 because they changed so much about how the class is played. But I did want people to understand that their weapon, their choice of weapon when they first start this, is what's going to define their Dragon Knight. And that's kind of the overriding feature of the class is their dragon weapons and their ability to use them very differently from traditional weapons. So that's why those choices are in there, and why for the pike you can use it as if it has the finesse property, because I want the if you're going to be a dex-based dragoon, you're probably going to lowball strength, because a lot of dex-based characters do that. And if I give you a strength-based weapon and then 2 levels down change it into a dex-based weapon, it's just not going to work. The same thing when I released update 1.3, I added in the javelins can be a finesse weapon as well, seen as the winged spear is kind of a combination of a pike and a javelin where you can throw it or you can poke with it. Beyond that, it's all kind of relatively similar stuff. Chainmail will be anyone using a strength-based build. Leather will be anyone using a dex-based build. Super easy. The Dragon Pact, when I first wrote it, it was a lot more complicated than I eventually turned it into. And it required you having the stat blocks of one of the dragons itself. So to play the class, you really needed a monster manual. And one of my playtesters recommended, no, put a table in there, make it super easy for people to be able to do this. And it worked a lot better this way. It really did. I'm very thankful of that suggestion. One of the things I did do was I standardized the damage for all the different breath weapons, because different color dragons have different challenge ratings and therefore some have more powerful breath attacks, some have less powerful breath attacks. So I basically made it that maximum damage for a 90-foot long line is going to be somewhere around between 60 and 70 damage. So 70-10 is 70, 8d8 is 64. 11d6 is 66. So I did that specifically so that they all had very similar amounts of damage, but I based which damage die it was on what the actual damage die was for the dragon itself. So blue dragons used d10s for their damage die, and copper dragons used d8. So I kept with that. I did make the cones do slightly less damage than the lines, simply because they can hit so many more. Even though it's a level 20 ability for the breath weapon, I wanted to make sure that it was balanced as much as possible. So beyond that, the infusing your weapon with the damage type was one of the things I kind of tossed around for a little bit. But again, it really fit into the theme of the class, even though it was basically like giving low-level characters magic weapons or things that can get around damage resistances and stuff like that. It really kind of identified and defined the fact that, no, you're different. You do things differently as a Dragon Knight than you would as like a fighter that's an Eldritch Knight or something like that. The Servant of the Dragon feature was 100% a role-playing feature. It was put in there specifically to add flavor, and to really describe how a dragon would be willing to give this much power to a mortal being, and then who could then use it to kill them. I don't think a lot of people understand that the blessing of power is a one-time deal. You aren't constantly drawing power from your Dragon Master, once you get the blessing, that power is inside of you. And it grows as you grow in power. Because of that, this could be a very, very bad thing from a lore perspective for dragons to do, because they could bless someone with their power. That person could go away, train for a little bit, come back and kill them. And so I wanted to put in some reasons why a dragon would do this. The ability to communicate and see through your eyes means the dragon now has influence over a much wider range. And their ability to inflict you with levels of exhaustion is their kind of trump card. It's the idea of, listen, if you screw up too much, I will just kill you. And it does show that very much master-servant relationship built into the class itself. I didn't want people to think that, oh, this is my dragon buddy, and he's... No, in order to get something like this, dragons in general, in every single campaign setting, dragons in general are these phenomenal, powerful beings that are very, very wise. They're generally not going to think themselves as an equal of a mortal race ever. So that's what Servant of the Dragon was really designed to do. The Draconic Power, again, this is the second half of the class that makes it very unique. The Dragon Die itself is 100% linked to proficiency bonus. Like, I literally just looked at the proficiency bonus, and whenever the proficiency bonus would change, so would the Dragon Die, all the way up to the D10 at level 17. This, I specifically choose using a die or something like that to give myself more freedom when designing abilities and things like that. If it was just a flat bonus like Rages, it limits a little bit of your ability to do things. Here, anytime something different would happen, I could just go, oh, here, throw in your Dragon Die. And that ability would never become useless no matter what level you were, because it became more powerful as you did. So at low levels, it was a small amount, and at high levels, it was a pretty large amount. And that gave me the ability to really make the class play very differently and be able to give them bonus damage when I wanted to and limit it when I didn't want to. One of the things that I never implemented, and I may in a later update or even in a later expansion to it, is adding the Dragon Die into ability checks and things like that. But again, that was one of the reasons why I made that, so I could if I wanted. It just didn't make it into the final product this time. The Dragon Transformation is Legend of Dragoon. That's 100% what it was. Legend of Dragoon is one of my favorite games. I am super, super sad that it never got a sequel, because I think it's one of the best games on the original PlayStation ever. Like, it was so far beyond its time and so well made. The story was phenomenal. Everything about it was so much fun. And so, again, I wanted to be able to do that in D&D, and you couldn't, so I made a way to do it. The Dragon Transformation is 100% inspired by the Dragoon transformations in Legend of Dragoon. It gives you a fly speed. It gives you a little bit of defense, seen as not every calling was going to be offense-oriented. So I wanted to give people a reason to use it beyond, well, I need extra damage. Because then it becomes very boring. If all it is, well, I can tack on some extra damage, it's not something that people are going to want to use. I wanted to give it the ability to be used outside of combat. I wanted to give it the ability to be something that requires a conscious choice. Not like, oh, I need extra damage? Okay, I do Dragon Transformation. Beyond that, the other thing, I wanted the Dragon Transformation to be something that you used in conjecture with the dragon attacks. So I added in the expanded criticals to give people the idea of, oh, maybe I want to combine this with other things. The Dragon Knight itself is very much a splash damage type character where, depending on how you play them, they can be very, very focused on a ton of damage at the same time, and then after that's done, they're doing much lower damage. So The reason I originally was going to have it, they get their Draconic Power Points back on a long rest. And again, one of my playtesters mentioned, well, no, if this is going to be a defining feature of the class, it needs to be something that's used more often. I didn't want to give them a ton of power points because that would make them too powerful. So by putting them reset on a short rest, it still meant that they couldn't just blow through all of their power points every combat. So it would give them a little bit of limitation, but it would let them really use it as much as they possibly could, and really kind of define the class with it. The callings we'll get into in a little bit. Extra attack was relatively simple. It's a melee-based class. They always get, or fighting-based classes that aren't casters get extra attack. The Draconic Presence was me trying to add in the aspects of what makes a D&D dragon a D&D dragon. And one of the defining features of a dragon is their, I can't even remember what it's called right now, but it's their fear ability. They can strike fear in the hearts of their opponents. I didn't want to give a level 7 character the ability to do what a dragon can do because it would be way overpowered. But it made a lot of sense for a Dragoon to be able to channel, or a Dragon Knight to be able to channel some of their master's fearful presence into their own abilities. So I made it a bonus action, so it's something that, you know, like a Dragoon could sit there, throw their spear a couple of times, and then fear somebody else. Yeah, again, it was specifically designed to give people choices for how they play their character. And I think it's a cool ability that I think a lot of people will undervalue for a little bit. And again, just like the PowerPoints, it's a shorter or long rest thing. Improved flight, again, very, very simple. This was not so much a combat thing that I designed improved flight for. I actually considered it more of a non-combat aspect, where there would be difficult situations that a Dragon Knight would be put into as far as trying to traverse an area. The improved flight was designed to give them the ability to get across wide gaps or get, you know, to the second level of a tower or something like that. Very similar to how like monks can run on walls and things like that. I wanted them to have an extra bit of mobility, and so that's what it was. In combat, it works really cool as well, but that was actually primarily focused on out of combat uses. Dragon Strike is 100% a copy of Paladins. Get something very similar where they can just add extra radiant damage to their attacks. Almost the exact same thing. It was designed to keep their damage in line with Paladins, Barbarians, and Fighters. Since Fighters by that time have, I think, 3 attacks per turn. That's 100%. That's all it was designed to do. So very, very simple, and I think it's specifically put at 11th level so that you cannot combine that with like the Paladin's extra damage or anything like that. It was designed to not let you do that. Extended transformation, again, this was designed with the idea of I want people using the dragon transformation and the dragon attacks combined. I want people to feel like this is something that you do together. It also had, again, that out of combat idea of, you know, giving them extra ability to move around and things like that. So the Dragon Resolve was another thing that I just felt kind of fit into it. Most dragons are immune to their specific element type, so by the time you hit 15th level, it would make sense for that to be a thing. You would become immune to that damage type as well. It gives the class itself a little bit more survivability, but it doesn't make it completely broken due to the fact that it's only one damage type, and they don't really get to choose it beyond, you know, choosing that as their starting class feature. It's not like they get to change it or anything like that. So I didn't feel it was too overpowered. Draconic Wellspring was based on a monk ability that's very similar. and I think maybe even called Key Wellspring or something like that. But yeah, it's again, by the time you get into 17th level, I wanted to give them the ability to do more combat right after another. So if they were burning through their power points a lot, like a lot of monks do by that level, where they're just burning through key points, doing everything that they can. Um, uh, Again, I wanted them to be able to keep pace with classes like the monk. And then Gift of the Dragon was 100% based on a little bit of feedback from people that actually purchased the class or downloaded the class from the DMs Guild. Uh, and it's a dragon. I had to give him a Dragon Breath attack. I really, really did. I could not call this a Dragon Knight without giving them a Dragon Breath attack. The idea that they can't die from old age, someone on the page actually mentioned, from a lore perspective, it must be a very unique experience for a dragon to invest so much in the servant and then watch them die in a very small fraction of their lifespan, because dragons are just about immortal in Dungeons and Dragons in general. And so they made a suggestion about that, and I said, I really couldn't add that in as like a starting class feature or anything, simply because there are spells and traps and things like that that will age you and hurt you that way, and I wouldn't want to take that ability away from a dungeon master. But it makes sense that at a certain point, even though the blessing is a one-time thing, having that connection with their master through the telepathy and being their servant for so long, they would eventually actually create a real bond between them that connected their life forces. So yeah, that's what was the entire thing. So yeah, due to the fact this is already a super long video, I'm going to go ahead and end this video. I will make separate videos, which will be significantly shorter, for each of the callings, including the newest one that I just released like a month ago. So anyway, that's all from me today. I'll see you guys next time, all right? Bye-bye!